Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Sports Matter podcast. My name is Gianna Castro, and I am your host. Today, I wanted to discuss the gun problem in the United States and why it is being dubbed as an epidemic by many science experts like Dr. Anthony Fauci. The reason I'm doing this podcast, it is for a school assignment. It is called the Advocating for Change Project at my community college. Now, I've used this podcast before to do other school assignments. I think that's also kind of the reason why I started this podcast, to do more than just talk about women's sports. That's why we have things called off-topic discussion, which I will discuss later on. But one of the reasons why I'm doing gun violence, gun problem, gun whatever in today's episode is because I am very passionate about gun sense laws. When the Parkland shooting happened, I was a sophomore in high school, and that was kind of like the last straw for me. I started to realize that I didn't want to see this happen at my high school, and I wanted to create change. So my junior year of high school, I joined this group called Students Demand Action. And with Students Demand Action, that is a student-run group that advocates for gun sense laws, which is like the background checks that were passed in the House. We are a nonpartisan group. We do not affiliate ourselves with any political party, but we do endorse leaders that will advocate for gun sense laws. And most of them happen to be Democrats. But we are not affiliated with a party. We are nonpartisan. And sometimes it's hard for people to realize that, but I wanted to say here, we are nonpartisan. We do not pick a party. We just want gun sense laws. And within Students Demand Action, I am a text team captain, and I am one of 4 virtual field office leaders for Illinois' section of Students Demand Action. So it's been fun working with them. I recently got that position in the beginning of the year, the beginning of 2021. And I love working with them. It's such a fun group. To finally be surrounded by other people that want to see change happen within the United States is incredible. I enjoyed volunteering my time to talk about gun sense laws because that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that people in this country are safe, and I don't want to take away your guns, okay? But I can't wait to see what's going to happen next with this group. We are going to move on from the presidential election, in which we signed up, I think it was 1 million people to vote, some crazy number like that, just through our website, which will be linked down below, and I'll talk about that later. But just a reminder for this podcast, I do not speak for everyone involved in Everytown, which is the group that started Students Demand Action. I don't speak for Students Demand Action Illinois, or any members within these groups. I don't speak for anyone except myself. Just throwing out that disclaimer out there. We all have our own opinions. I'm sharing mine. I'm sharing some statistics today too. So, yeah. Now, I know this is a women's sports podcast, but this is what we call an off-topic discussion. If you are new to the pod, basically what I do is for the most part, it's like political stuff. I'm huge into like politics and everything like that. It's like the other part of my life besides sports. So that's what an off-topic discussion is. It's off-topic from women's sports. That's basically it. Now, this, like I said before, is for a school assignment, so this will be a little shorter than most of my episodes are. So if you're finally excited that an episode isn't 30 minutes long, congratulations. This is the episode for you. I know most of my episodes are really long, but today will be shorter. This is a mix of research and my opinion. So like I said before, I speak for myself, but I'm also going to be talking about different statistics that I found and different news articles that I found. As always, before we start talking about stuff on my podcast, we have to head to a commercial break. First, before we talk about the gun problem in the United States, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Anchor. Hey everyone, it's Gianna Belcastro from the Women's Sports Matter podcast, and today I'm going to be discussing the sponsor of this show, Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome back, everyone. Like I said, today we'll be talking about the gun violence problem in the United States. Now, you may have just heard me say gun violence, a little bit weird. In my script here, I have it in quotes, and the reason for that is some Americans don't believe it is a problem. They think that when trying to pass things like gun sense laws, like background checks, that we're infringing on their Second Amendment rights. We're actually trying to keep Americans safe by letting people still carry guns, but legally. Now, I'm not the only person in the United States that believes that gun violence is a problem, let alone it's a gun violence epidemic. President Joe Biden believes that there should be more gun reform laws in the United States. He said in a statement, "Gun violence is an epidemic in America, but we should not accept it. We must act." And what he means by act is to pass these bills that the House of Representatives pass, get them to the Senate, get it passed, get it on President Joe Biden's desk. I'll talk about those bills a little bit later on in the episode. When it comes to restricting the use of guns, people on the right side of the political spectrum believe it's an infringement of their Second Amendment rights. Now, if you're not sure what the Second Amendment is, don't worry, I got you. According to the United States Constitution, the Second Amendment is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Keep in mind the well-regulated militia part because I am going to be talking about that later. When some Republican politicians run for office, they make sure to let voters know that they are pro-2A. And pro-2A means pro-Second Amendment for anyone listening that wasn't sure what that meant. When it comes to politicians writing bills restricting the use of guns, I don't believe they are doing it because they don't like guns. They're not anti-gun. They're doing it to prevent things like mass shootings happening every day in the United States. In an article from Forbes, writer Jack Brewster notes, the U.S. has averaged more than one mass shooting a day this year, continuing an upward trend since researchers began thoroughly tracking the subject following the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary. According to this article, since April 16th, there have been 147 mass shootings in the United States so far in 2021. 147. Now, I'm recording this a month later. It's May 15th. And what is happening in this country is absurd. 147 so far. The United States numbers for mass shootings per year, when you compare it to other countries, is just, it's so high up there. We are number one. I think Brazil is second or something like that. When it comes to mass shootings happening in the world, the United States is on top of that list because we don't have proper gun control here. Plain and simple. But Congress finally decided to do something about it. Well, kind of. Back in March, the House of Representatives passed two major gun bills. If passed, these new bills would help stop mass shootings occurring in the United States. According to an article by NPR, House lawmakers have passed two bills aimed at strengthening the nation's gun laws, including a bill that would require background checks on all gun sales and transfers. Now, before I would continue talking about this, I wanted to go to a website that would explain in more detail what these bills meant. So I went to factchecker.org to make sure I had my facts right when recording this episode. According to Robert Farley from factchecker.org, H.R. 8, passed by the House on March 11th, seeks to extend the background check requirements to almost all gun transfers, including those between private parties. It would require firearm transfers between private parties to be handled by a licensed firearms dealer who would take possession of the firearm while the background check is being conducted. H.R. 1446, the Enhanced Background Checks Act, is about closing the Charleston loophole. These bills have nothing to do with taking legally owned guns, like Madison Cawthorn tried to say in the House of Representatives. Mr. Cawthorn, no one is trying to take your guns unless you have them illegally. Now you may be thinking, are these two gun bills enough to stop gun violence from happening in the United States? My guess is as good as yours. I don't think two bills are enough. Congress needs to step it up a bit and figure out different bills or reintroduce different bills that would prevent mass shootings happening. I think there needs to be a bill that would take away the sale of assault rifles, like automatic weapons, because I don't think the regular American needs that. You don't need a military-style weapon to protect yourself. Like a handgun or a pistol, maybe, you can carry on you, but nothing to the extreme. That's my take on this. I think that Congress needs to step it up a bit. They need to start thinking about their constituents and not, dark money from the NRA or whatever. Now we're going to talk about what happened in other countries and how they handled it. Countries like England, Australia, and New Zealand seem to have things under control when it comes to mass shootings happening in their countries. Now, what I mean by that is once tragedy strikes, or I should say in past tense, because once tragedy struck, the leaders of these countries took action right away to prevent things like that happening in the future. An example of this is what happened in New Zealand in 2019. According to Adam Taylor from the Washington Post, in March 2019, Brenton Harrison Tarrant, 28, opened fire at two mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, and killed 51 Muslim worshippers with weapons that included an AR-15 style rifle. Less than 24 hours later, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced that the country would change its gun laws. Now, when I first heard this, I was shocked. I wondered how a country like New Zealand could take action so swiftly, but the United States couldn't. In an interview with CNN, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern explained her decision by saying, Australia experienced a massacre and changed their laws. New Zealand had its experience and changed its laws. To be honest with you, I don't understand the United States. The most important part of the gun problem in the United States, besides the fact that people are obtaining guns illegally or they're not going through background checks, things like that, is mental health. I believe that is in the top part of this that people forget about. In regards to mental health, I think people stigmatize it to the point that it isn't talked about enough, especially when it comes to gun violence. I am not aware of any gun bills that involve mental health checkups or well-being, stuff that involves mental health within the gun control or gun sense laws world. That is my problem that I didn't look it up, but I just thought of it now. But the other day I read this journal called A Public Health Approach to Tackling the Role of Culture in Shaping the Gun Violence Epidemic in the United States. And this was published in 2020. So it is still you can use this to talk about this subject because of how recent it is. And so according to this journal, one of the authors, Salma Abdallah, an epidemiologist from Boston University, she wrote about 35% of global firearm-related suicides occur in the United States. 35%. That's another big number here, along with the 147 mass shootings. There are the 35% of global firearm-related suicides occur in the United States. Now, I'm assuming that means the United States ranks first in that category if it's global firearm-related suicides. That is a problem. That is straight up a problem. There's no other way to describe it. Like I said earlier, there needs to be a conversation started about this. There needs to be laws created to protect people from themselves, essentially. And to make sure that people are locking up their guns correctly, so people in that household can't have access to them. Regular check-ins with gun owners could help save lives and prevent some mass shootings from occurring in the United States. Going back to what New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said about the United States, to be honest, I don't understand the United States either. Countries like England, Australia, and New Zealand got their act together when it came to gun violence occurring in their respective countries. But the United States just sits back and waits for the next one to happen. Shootings like Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, and many others seem to be pushed into the back of lawmakers' minds when it comes to gun control. Americans don't need your thoughts and prayers. They need action. They want the shooters to be held accountable for their actions, no matter if they are a Democrat or a Republican. Republicans need to stop taking money from groups like the NRA and start taking action to protect their constituents. These people are public servants, not servants for the National Rifle Association. The Second Amendment clearly states that people have a right to keep and bear arms, but it has to be well regulated. If by chance you don't agree, then what do you think it means? Tweet me at WSM Podcast or comment on my most recent post at Women Sports Matter on Instagram. When it comes to having a well-regulated militia, you need to pass gun sense laws. All in all, the best way to fix this problem is to pass legislation that creates better background checks, gets rid of loopholes, gets rid of military-style weapons from regular Americans, and regular mental health check-ins for gun owners. To learn more about gun control laws and the gun violence epidemic, check out the links provided in the description. These links are what I was talking about in this episode. It's all my sources, basically, so if you want to check those out, they're listed down below. Also, if you want to view the episode script from today, there is a link in the description. It'll be a Google Doc. You cannot edit, you cannot comment, you can just look at it. I've never really scripted an episode before, so it had to be a little more formal for today. And I like the way it turned out, but I will never do it again because I hate scripting. No offense to anyone that scripts their podcast episodes or anything like that. I just speak from the mind, you know? But anyway, if you're interested in learning more about Students Demand Action or March for Their Lives, and you want to get involved, their links will be provided down below. Again, these groups are student-led organizations that are trying to combat gun violence in the United States. Remember, everyone, we are still in a pandemic. This means we need to still wash our hands, wear a mask, and social distance when you can. Now, the CDC just recently talked about getting rid of masks if you're fully vaccinated, which I am. But I will still be wearing my mask around people that aren't. At least, hopefully, they will tell me. I'm still going to carry it around, basically, even though I am fully vaccinated. I received the Pfizer vaccine, and it's been the 2 weeks. I'm fully vaccinated, and I can't wait to return to some sort of normalcy soon. I even bought concert tickets. I'm so excited. So excited. I cannot tell you how excited I am. Normalcy, man. Just get vaccinated. The whole point of getting vaccinated is to eradicate COVID by having at least 70 to 80% of the American population vaccinated. But we also need to help out other countries as well, giving them vaccines to make sure the world eradicates COVID-19. I will provide a link down below to help you find a place to get vaccinated if you need help with that. Also, just one little thing. Think about all the time that you spent at home, and now you get to see your family, but only if you get vaccinated. Getting vaccinated is going to help us return to normalcy. Don't be selfish. Sign up to get a vaccine. It's simple, super easy. You don't even have to pay for it. Just go, use the link provided down below, get a vaccine, get away from COVID-19. Want to listen to more episodes of this show? Subscribe. It's that easy. Want to follow me on social media? Great. On Twitter, you can follow me at WSM Podcast. And on Twitter, you can follow me at Women's Sports Matter. Have suggestions, questions, want to come on the show? My email is in the description. Thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the Women's Sports Matter podcast. My name is Gianna Belcastro, and I'll see you next time. That's all, folks. Have a nice rest of your day. Bye.